I'm Caden, here with my brother,
Cal.
and you're watching Eating W's.
Eat the W.
That's a W. Let's eat one. Let's eat one. That's a W.
On today's episode of Eating W's, we have our NFL Week 9 predictions. But before we jump into those predictions, a quick update on our Cal and I's head-to-head pick'em game. Cal and I both put up 9 last week, which I think is the first time this year that we've been even for a week. Neither of us had our upset. He hit his lock, I did not, but I got one more other game right that he didn't. So puts us at 9 even and a total of me with 76 and him with 72. So I'm just barely holding on to that 4-point lead, but nevertheless, I am still holding on to that 4-point lead.
Didn't lose any points.
Can't complain. Haven't started choking it away quite yet. So now we will jump into our predictions for this week, Week 9, starting with the Thursday night football game of the Philadelphia Eagles, heading to Houston to take on the Texans. Cal and I both have the Eagles in this one, and both have them marked as our lock, which of course means the Texans will probably end up winning this game.
Definitely.
But I picked the Eagles in this one because you already know why. If you've seen any game this year, you know that the Eagles 99.999% should absolutely dominate the Texans beyond a recognizable form of a football team. But let's see if the long neck of the law, Davis Mills, has anything to say about that.
This should be the 80-point blowout game this week. But it's on Thursday night, so we could end up with a 10-3. You never know.
Who knows?
We never know
will.
On Thursday night.
Derek Stingley, 2 pick sixes, leads them to a win.
Oh, man. It could happen.
Dude, it would be
any given Thursday.
Oh, it would be so exciting. But nevertheless, I think the Eagles got this one pretty easy. Next up, we have an out-of-conference matchup with the Los Angeles Chargers heading to Atlanta to take on the Falcons, and a split here. I have the Chargers in this one, and Callan has the Falcons as his lock.
I have the Falcons
as my upset. Excuse me.
Oh, yes, because the Chargers are favored in this game. However, the Chargers are going from LA to Atlanta for a noon game. And we all know you can't trust a West Coast team going to the East Coast to play a noon game for that body clock. And there's 2 of those games this week. And this is one of them. And I think this will be the big upset with the Falcons controlling their lead in the NFC South.
I always give Callan shit for that, the cross country. But after watching the Saints absolutely stomp the Raiders the way they did last week, I'll have to give them a little less crap for it because it definitely has some merit. But nevertheless, Justin Herbert is just too damn good of a quarterback for the Chargers to continue to lose the way they do. They truly are the Vikings of the AFC. They find the most ridiculous ways to lose. They play well and still lose. They have a stacked roster and still lose. It's just insane. So I think that they're going to be able to take out this mediocre Atlanta Falcons team. They had the bye week last week, so they've had 2 whole weeks to prepare for this game. Their guys are rested up. They're going to have a lot of guys back at 100%. Big one being Keenan Allen there as a wide receiver 1. And Marcus Mariota, I think, will play well. I think this game will end up being pretty damn close, especially since it's in Atlanta. But overall, I see the Chargers coming out there with a win. So next up, we have an NFC North divisional matchup with the Green Bay Packers heading to the Detroit Lions. And Cal and I both have the Packers in this one. Packers have been rough. They've been struggling. But so have the Lions.
They're gonna win, right?
The Lions just fired their quarterback coach, Aubrey Pleasant, a little bit ago. They just seem to kind of be almost...
They just traded away their star tight end.
Traded away Hawkinson. They almost seem to be entering some sort of give up tank mode, which sometimes those teams are the teams that come out and perform crazy
I feel like
good.
Green Bay is that team, though.
This was far and away the hardest one to pick this week. I sat there and thought about this one for a good 3 to 5 minutes and finally fell on the Packers just because the Packers seem to have the Lions number, but it's an absolute toss-up.
In Detroit, anything can happen too. I have the Packers because I got to go with my team this week. It's a divisional game. I know I went against them last week, kind of went on a little bit of a heel turn, but I like the way they looked last week, and I feel like if they could just play that same way and get a lead and build it and run the ball and keep that lead, then they they could win this game, and it's going to be tough. The defense is going to have to show up. The Detroit is the number 4 offense in the NFL right now, so it'll be a tough offense to stop. It could end up being a shootout. Romeo Doubs showed he can make some catches this past Sunday, so that's good to see. We didn't make any trades. We're rolling with the young guys, and it's draft and develop, and that's what Green Bay does.
That's what they're built on. I am excited to watch this game because it's going to be a cluster either way. I can't even imagine what's going to happen in this game. But moving from 2 NFC North teams to another, next up we have the Minnesota Vikings heading to Washington to take on the Commanders, and another split. Callan has the Commanders in this one. I, of course, have the Vikings. I am absolutely beyond terrified of Taylor Heineke, though. The Vikings, I, of course, see them winning this game. I, of course, want them to win this game. The key to success here for the Vikings is going to be getting a lead and keeping a lead. The last 2 weeks with Taylor Heineke, the Commanders have came out and looked absolutely flat. Looked like they didn't even know what they were doing on offense. Defense could barely hold up. But then they'd stay in games with teams. Teams let them stay in the game with them. And they come roaring back on this crazy fourth quarter comeback. And I'm just so scared that that's going to happen to the Vikings. So my thing that I'm going to be looking out for this week is getting and establishing a lead early, going into halftime with the 2+ possession lead, and then coming out firing in the third quarter and really beating them down and putting them to the point that they can have their roaring comeback in the fourth, but they're going to be so far behind that it's not going to matter.
Yeah, this is the Taylor Heineke revenge game. That's what it is.
Yep.
He's a former Viking. And I really like what Taylor Heineke has done. They're on a 3-game winning streak right now. The Commanders, they're just hot. They got the momentum going. And the Vikings always have that one game a year where they just kind of shit the bed. And I'm rolling the dice that this is the week that they do that.
I know this sounds weird, but if we could get it out of the way before the halfway mark, I'd be okay with that because it's true. It's so true. Every year we have one game where we just look like we're not even an actual NFL football team. And if we can just get out of the way early, I am more than okay with that. So next up, we have another divisional matchup, this time in the NFC West, with the Seattle Seahawks heading to the Arizona Cardinals. And Cal and I have a match here, which really surprised me. We both have the Seahawks in this one.
Yeah, the Seahawks are just on a roll right now. Kenneth Walker has really shown to be quite the draft pick. He's been able to take control of that backfield. And Geno Smith is just, he's damn near an NFL MVP candidate.
He's been killing it.
He has been, and they've been on a roll, and that defense is starting to really come around. It's really young, but it's really aggressive. And I was really surprised at the way they were able to shut down the Giants last week. And I think that they can build on all that momentum that they've been getting.
Yep. I talked about it in yesterday's episode, but I really like what the Cardinals have been able to do on offense since getting Nuke Hopkins back, which, of course, that improved their offense a good little bit. Everyone knew that. But it really impressed me how much of a step up they took in their offense with getting him back. But I see the Seahawks winning this game because they're just such a good all-around team. They don't have the names on paper to look like they should be a playoff contender, front-runner team in that NFC West division. But they find ways to do it because they just play good, solid football in all 3 phases of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. And I think that Cardinals offense is going to play well and really put up some points on that Seahawks defense. But I don't know if that Cardinals defense, and especially that Cardinals special teams, is going to be able to hold up against a solid roster on both of those phases, offense and special teams, respectively, for the Seahawks.
This could end up being the game of the week, and quite the shootout.
Yep. Okay, and then next up, we have the Titans heading to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. I got the Titans in this one as my upset, and Callan has the Chiefs in this one.
Yeah, the Chiefs are just on quite the roll right now, and they're a different team at home. They're one of those teams like the Vikings, so they play a lot better at home than they do on the road. Patrick Mahomes is having his usual kind of year, so I just think that the Titans have kind of usually had the Chiefs number, especially in the playoffs. But I have a feeling that they won't be able to get the run game going, especially if it's Malik Willis. going into Arrowhead, and if it's not Ryan Tannehill, then I think that'll be quite a difference too. And from what I've heard, it's going to be Malik Willis again. So that's why I think the Chiefs will win this one.
See, I picked the Titans because I think they're going to be able to get that run game going again. I think that Derrick Henry is going to have another monster game. I don't know if he's going to have many monster games going forward, especially if I'm correct and he has 2 in a row. But overall, I just like the matchup they have against that Chiefs defense, because outside of Chris Jones and then maybe Nick Bolton developing a little bit, they don't have a ton of like hard-nosed run stoppers on that team. So I think that Derrick Henry is going to be able to find a lot of holes in that defense and go off for a lot of yards. And then, the way to beat the Chiefs is to keep that offense off of the field. Don't let that offense be as explosive as they are. So if Derrick Henry is able to absolutely go off, that's going to chew some clock and, of course, keep that Chiefs offense off the field.
Yep, they got to get that run game going. If they do, they definitely have a chance.
For sure. Next up, we have our final Monday night game of the Baltimore Ravens heading to New Orleans to take on the Saints in yet another split. Callan has the Saints in this one. I have the Ravens. I pick the Ravens almost every week. They have a really good roster. They've let me down a lot of those weeks that I've picked them. Not going to lie, they're not doing near as well as I expected this year. But the Saints just got absolutely smashed on Thursday Night Football recently by the Arizona Cardinals. And I see a very similar situation happening here with the Ravens. They just got a really good all-around roster, and the Saints have way too many injuries. The Saints did look pretty good just last week. Alvin Kamara had a huge game, almost 100 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. But I know it's kind of contradictory to what I just said, because I said I think the Titans are going to win because Derrick Henry will have another big game. But it's hard for running backs these days to have 2 big games in a row, especially as a receiver. So I don't see that happening again. And I see the Ravens picking up a win.
The Saints have scored almost 30 points a game this season. They're one of the top 10 in scoring offenses. So I just think that they're going to be able to outscore the Ravens. I think that even as long as Andy Dalton doesn't throw back-to-back pick sixes, I think that they have a good chance to really go ahead of the Ravens, and especially if they can get Alvin Kamara going, then they really have a chance. And I just believe that they're going to be able to do that.
For sure. I realized that I forgot to mark a game of the week for this week, so throw it back up there. Game of the week, Seahawks in Arizona going against the Cardinals. I agree. I think this is going to be a fireworks show of a game. So mark it in as game of the week. As for teams on bye this week, we got 3 AFC, 3 NFC. We got the Browns, Broncos, and Steelers, as well as the Cowboys, Giants, and 49ers. So short week this week for week 9 of the NFL season, but should still be a good one. A lot of good matchups. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Maybe subscribe if you liked it. And until next time, don't forget
to eat the W.